and welcome to a special episode of the Scottish Football Podcast. Ahead of the new season, we're going through each Premiership club and asking what their fans can expect from the season ahead. And this episode, we're focusing on last season's surprise package, Falkirk.
Yeah, Calvin Miller, he stood behind the ball in a straight line, wasn't giving any clues away, just drifted off to the right-hand side, hit it with his left foot, kept it to his left-hand side, down to the goalkeeper's right-hand side, who went the other way, and Falkirk deservedly, I've got to say, here at Fir Park, lead by 3-1.
I was so pleased, so proud of the players, and it feels amazing to be in the top six. We would never have kind of thought we would have been just coming up for the Championship and having that quick step from League One to the Championship and then into the Premiership, and to get top six. Can't speak highly enough of the players.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Joining me to chat all things Falkirk, Gordon Waddell, football journalist and Falkirk fan. Gordon, are you still kind of reeling from the joys of last term and Falkirk's success?
I'm not sure Giddy quite covers it, to be honest with you, Charlotte. But listen, we did this time last year, and we were hesitant. Both Craig and myself were not entirely sure, because it had been so long since we'd been in the top flight. We had a squad of players who had done us proud, coming up, back to back through League One and the Championship, but most of whom had very little experience of playing at that level. But the one thing we did have last year, both of us, was complete faith in the manager and John McGlynn to understand what was required. And I think if we had a man of the season last year, most people have player of the season and all that, but I think John proved himself once again to be an absolute cut above last year and escorting us to where we got to, into the top six. The one disappointment was a cup semi-final defeat, obviously, where we never turned up. But I don't think that goes anywhere close to offsetting the excellence of the season, and just how well we emerged from the campaign.
Yeah, we'll come on to talk about all of that alongside Craig Cruickshanks, Falkirk fan and Stenhousemuir community coach. Craig, Gordon was trying to think back to when you guys did this last year, and I think he thought you'd had Falkirk potentially finishing 11th last season, potentially in a playoff spot, but I suppose far above your potential expectations last season.
Yeah, I think Gordon hit the nail on the head with quite a lot of the points there. It's the fact that a lot of the squad hadn't played in the Premiership for that long. And you're doing it. It's okay. Like in the previous years, we had bet, Hearts in the Cup, for example, and it's okay doing that in one-off games, but doing it across the full season, that was going to be the challenge. But John and the full team were just brilliant. We were well clear of the bottom two. And if you had looked previously, we'd always struggled against Livingston, so we were trying to match ourselves against them and finish above them. But in the end, we were so close that you couldn't see Livingston behind us. It was that big a gap.
Well, we're just over a week into July as we record this. Teams are getting back into friendly action as we gear up for the new season. Falkirk have just beaten Airdrie 2-1 in their latest pre-season test. But just looking back on last season, Craig, I mean, did you ever imagine that it could have gone the way it did? You're talking there about, your kind of marker at the start was maybe Livingston, and as you mentioned, far beyond them come the end of the season. But could you ever have imagined it going as well as it did your first season in the Premiership?
No, definitely not. The players had the potential. Your Calvin Miller, Dylan Tate, ironically two players that we've lost. But even like Barney Stewart coming back in January from his loan spell, he just hit the ground running, and that really propelled us from January onwards. Other players, Liam Henderson had a great season at the back. Our loan players, Philip Lissa, brilliant player, but no one knew about him until he started playing. The other loan players had a massive impact as well, with Wilson, Williams from Man United. It was just unfortunate he got injured because he looked a really good player as well. So the loan players definitely helped us have that really good season.
Yeah, you were touching on that before we started recording, Gordon, as well. That these guys who came in actually quite late on in the window, you said, to have such a massive impact on the squad throughout the course of the season?
Well, I mean, I think again we record this in July, and I think last year we were probably closer to the end of July when we recorded our kind of thoughts and predictions, and at that time we were looking, and I thought we were probably at least 4 or 5 light in the squads. And then the guys who came in at the time, I mean, just looking back on this, you had, as Craig's pointed out, Wilson and Williams came in on August the 29th and August the 31st, and Philip Lissa, who was arguably our, if not our best player, then certainly one of our top 3 players last year, came in on September the 1st, So, I mean, the season was well underway before we even saw these guys appear, but the way that they integrated into the team and came straight in and hit the ground running. And again, as Craig pointed out, the kind of momentum boost that we got from Barney Stewart coming back in January, but also Ben Broggio appearing from Aston Villa at the start of February on loan. The two things about that are, yes, the loan market's notoriously volatile. Bringing in 19, 20, 21-year-olds, they can be hit and miss sometimes. They can maybe, coming up from down south, they can fail to settle, they can fail to blend into the culture of Scottish football. They can, fail to maybe make it in a dressing room. But almost without exception, these guys all kind of came in and just blended in seamlessly, which serves a purpose to John McGlynn as a manager as well, because if managers at clubs like Swansea and, Man United and Aston Villa see players going on loan, playing 10, 15, 20, 25 starts in a top flight environment and succeeding, then the next Philip Lissa or the next Kyrell Wilson or whatever, they will then maybe get given to us again because they think we like what John McGlynn did with our player last year. Who's our next best guy that we can give him this year? And if you get a reputation for that kind of development of young players, I mean, the average age of these guys, we had 5 loanees that started more than 10 games last year as a kind of benchmark for just more than quarter of the league games. The average age was 20.2, and all of them were regulars in our team. And that's notwithstanding the other young Scottish guys that John developed within the environment, like Barney Stewart, like Keelan Adams. So that speaks volumes about our dressing room. It speaks about the coaching and the development and experience guys. So what you hope is that if we are going to get more players on loan this season, we will get a calibre of loan player that is going to be as good, if not better, than we've had before.
Yeah, Craig touched on Barney Stewart, likes of Calvin Miller as well. They've obviously both, as you mentioned, left the club this summer. I mean, talk about Barney Stewart first of all, because you both touched on his importance when he came back from his loan. Craig, that's a big loss. But how do you see Falkirk replacing him? Do you think they'll need to look elsewhere, bringing somebody in? Do you think they've got cover in the squad at the moment? How do you see that going?
I think we'll definitely need to bring someone in. I'll admit I'm a big Ross McKeever fan. I like when he plays. I think the opening 30 minutes of the Kilmarnock game before he got injured, we looked really, really good. I think we were 3 up before he got injured, and we had the front 4 of him, Wilson, Miller and Williams, and we looked really good that day. And then he got injured, didn't really come back an awful lot for the rest of the season. But I like Ross McKeever, but I think he needs someone up there because we lost Brian Graham as well as a number. So we definitely need another player up there. I don't know if Ethan Laidlaw will play there or if McGlynn sees him as a more wide option. But I think, definitely a striker needs to come in.
You've got Ben Parkinson coming back as well, obviously, but who'll be like a new player effectively because we lost him very early on, and which seemed unfortunate. But again, I'm not sure, Craig. I mean, you maybe know better than me. I'm not sure if he's the guy that plays, the one, ahead of the 3 well enough, to hold that down either. Which obviously Barney did when he came back. But I agree with you. I think McKeever is terrific in that role. If that's the way we're going to play, then as it stands at the moment, out of the ones that we have, he would be the choice. I think you mentioned the command. I mean, he was excellent in the Celtic game as well. Was it last year when we played early on against Celtic and he was excellent in that game as well. But I think you're right. He's the pick at the moment, but I'd be very surprised if there's not at least another one comes in that department. What
about Calvin Miller then, Craig? Because he was we saw how good he was throughout the course of the season, his creativity in particular. How much do you think Falkirk are going to miss him this season?
Oh, massively. Absolutely massively. We've signed the young guy from Ireland, but he is young, and we don't know how he's going to take to the league. The assists, the chances created, like Calvin Miller. I said a couple of seasons back when we lost Callum Morrison, Calvin Miller's a far better player, and Morrison had the goals, but in terms of his overall play, to beat a man, his turn of pace, Miller has just been excellent since he signed, and he's going to be a massive, massive miss, and really, really hard to replace. Really hard to replace.
The other thing that we've touched on is the kind of young players. Gordon, you were talking about the average age of some of the players in the Falkirk squad being on the significantly younger side compared to some of the other teams in the league. But do you think this kind of conveyor belt almost of young players, young signings coming in, I suppose, developing and then moving on, do you think that works?
I mean, clearly it does in the context of a single season. Whether it's sustainable or not is the big question. And again, it comes down to, as I said before, that, you can go and get, young guys on loan. You can bring young guys in. You can develop them, as Craig mentioned there. We've signed Paul McGovern from Glenavon, who seems to be full of promise. But again, he's got big boots to fill. And at 18, you have to give him the time and the benefit of the doubt, that you're going to say he might need, a season to get, to get a feel for it. But again, you're playing now in an environment where you've not got a season for everybody to settle. So again, without sounding, and I don't want to sound pessimistic about it, because I believe that John absolutely knows what he's doing with these guys, and I think his eye for a player has been proven. We had maybe one or two who we signed last year on loan, like Ogun Suye from Sunderland, and probably Sam Hart, who didn't impress particularly. But out of the ones that we did, that strike rate is phenomenal in that market, in that particular marketplace. So again, you've got to have faith that if you're signing players in that environment, Ethan Laidlaw being another good example. I mean, he's gone down to Brentford. He's been a bit hit and miss down there in their B team, but was by all accounts, excellent last year in their B team. I think he was their player at under 21 level, of the year last year at Brentford. So he's come back up the road, from having gone down there from Hibs and at 21, and he might be, the next Calvin Miller. He might, We've got other guys like, again, Ethan Ross played all 36 of our games in the Championship, and then just ended up being on the fringes of it last year, and played 22 of his 29 games off the bench last year. He should be looking at this as a season where he says, you know what, I'm going to show that I can do what Calvin Miller's done last year. And whether he can or not, I'm not sure. I mean, he was a little bit unlucky. He picked up an injury at the start of last season, and then never quite made his way back into the starting lineup, because we had an abundance of riches in the area that he plays. But he's a guy, who at what age is Ethan Ross? I'm thinking maybe 23 or something like that. I mean, he could well, be. Yeah, if he's going to play left or right and be that attacking player in the three, then it could be his season to suddenly shine and be the next Calvin Miller. So we've got options. I think we need more, but I agree 100%. Because Calvin Miller was phenomenal last year, and I think Hearts have it shows a lot of sense for Hearts to have signed him. I think Hearts are obviously looking in the right areas, and I think they've picked up, what will be a terrific upgrade for them in that department. Yeah,
we can talk about all of these changes on the pitch for Falkirk, but I do feel we need to address the elephant in the room, which is John McGlynn and his links with the Scotland job. Craig, I wonder, how do you feel about it? As a Falkirk fan, as a Scotland fan, John McGlynn potentially becoming Scotland manager?
I think he deserves a chance. I'm quite relaxed about it, because I think of the snobbery amongst Scottish fans. I think fans of other teams who don't watch Falkirk, don't know enough about Falkirk, they'll just turn their nose up at John McGlynn getting the Scotland job. He's not a big name. He's had one season in the top flight from the outside looking in. But what they don't see is the style he play, where he took us from when he came in to where we are now in such a short period of time. Some of the one-off games that he's done, and you listen to players who have played under him. I know Cole Donaldson speaks a lot about it, but the analytic side that he does, he's very tactical for the teams that we play and how he changes. You just need to look at the results against Motherwell last year. Motherwell couldn't get near us, and they had such a good season as well. So yeah, I'm quite comfortable, but I think he does deserve it. But I don't think they'll go down that route personally. But as a Scotland fan, I would like to see him get it. As a Falkirk fan, no, he shouldn't be going anywhere near it.
You do seem quite relaxed. Gordon, when we were kind of chatting before we started, was hands off McGlynn were the words that you used.
It's a hashtag that appears in our kind of in a couple of our WhatsApp groups every now and then when a manager disappears. Like especially if the Hearts job's going, then one of my mates, the first thing he always does is just post hands off McGlynn. So I agree with. I think Craig used the word there that's right, which is snobbery, and I think a lot of people will look down their nose at John. For absolutely no reason whatsoever. I mean, I saw somewhere everybody was talking about his age, and being in his early 60s or whatever, but I don't think that would even put him in the top 10 oldest managers at the World Cup if he was there. But the thing that I would say qualifies him is that, and it's something that if you ask any player who played against his Falkirk teams, he's created an identity for Falkirk. An identity for the way we play, for what our team represents, for how we go about our business, no matter who we're playing against. And yet he's tactically adaptable, as he's shown in games, as Craig rightly pointed out. If you look at the way that we played against Motherwell, and we played like 3 different ways against Motherwell last year, and every one of them was a success. And apart from the first 45 minutes that we played against them last year, where Motherwell absolutely destroyed us at Fir Park, and we went in 1-0 down, going on 6. And he made his adjustments in that game, and we came back and won it. And he never looked back. And for all that everybody gave Jens Bertalascu like so much credit last year, rightly so, for the way that Motherwell played, Falkirk outplayed them every time we played them, other than that first 45 minutes. So he showed he has tactical nous. He showed he can develop young Scottish players into established top flight players. And also, obviously, going on to earn our club money through guys like Barney Stewart and Calvin Miller moving on. Dylan Tate's moved on, and will move on to kind of bigger and better things. He ticks every box, other than he's not a big name. And if that's what's important to you, that we go and get a big name rather than the right name for Scotland manager, then good luck. I'd rather have a guy like John McGlynn, and I think if you spoke to, as Craig says, players who have played under him, but also anybody who's played against his teams, they would say that his teams have the kind of identity that we were missing as a Scotland team when we got to the World Cup. And that's, again, I don't want to be sitting here disparaging Steve Clarke. I've been on Radio Scotland for over the last 3 or 4 weeks several times. And every time you preface it by saying he's done brilliantly to get us where we have got to. But when we have got there, we have not covered ourselves in glory. And the next step is not an easy one to take. But to take it, you have to be braver than Steve Clarke's been when we've got to finals. And I think that John would be. I still suspect that Craig's right. He's not going anywhere, because I think ultimately the people on the board at the SFA would fear making a decision like that it would reflect on them, that they weren't being brave enough or spending enough money or going for a big enough name, when actually what they should be doing is looking for the right guy rather than the famous guy.
Yeah. I mean, this is all obviously hearsay, and we don't know what anybody's thinking, but Craig, from a Falkirk point of view, if McGlynn were to depart, does the club still feel like it's in a good place off the pitch? Would you feel comfortable with McGlynn leaving, given what he's done for the club up until this point?
No. No is the short answer. I think, guessing here, I think the club might go down the Stephen McGlynn route, just because he's been in and about the club and in and about John and Paul for the last season as a coach, but he's also played and captained us. I think he would have learned a lot from John and Paul. That's just a guess from me, though. I have absolutely no idea what the board will have a plan when John leaves, what they want to do. If that is going down Stephen McGlynn or if it's going down someone else. But if we're looking at, like, the odds for the Scotland job and Stephen A. Smith's at the top, if it's Stephen A. Smith or John McGlynn, it's no comparison for me. Absolutely no comparison. So that's the decision that the SFA need to make.
Gordon, I saw you grimace there at the thought of
again.
Stephen A. Smith.
If Stephen A. Smith's at the top of the odds for, and again, no disrespect to Stevie, he's a great guy, but he's nowhere close to being qualified to take the Scotland job with his managerial experience or lack of it. Again, I kind of agree with Craig to a point, and I think they might want to see some continuity in terms of Stephen McGlynn. The one thing I would suggest that hopefully the board will have learned is that they've already made their mistakes in a managerial sense before by trying to go left field with guys like Martin Rennie and even Paul Sheeran to a certain extent. When we've brought in these guys and they have been proven at their level not to be the right choice, not to have the experience needed, and then they eventually got John McGlynn. And I agree, John McGlynn has been the backbone of our club. Never mind the kind of the board, the chief executive, whatever. John McGlynn is the glue that holds the club together at the moment. If he goes, they are going to have to make a very, very smart decision as to who they bring in. But to me, it's going to have to be, again, somebody of similar stature and experience. I think if you go back down the road of kind of saying, right, well, let's go for a younger guy. We've shown over the last 3 years the benefit of having somebody that's been course and distance. So I'd like to think that they would look around the environment. I'm not saying just go for an older guy for the sake of it. I think it's got to be the right older guy, somebody with the right philosophy. But at the same time, I do fear slightly, and finances are a big thing as well. Actually being able to afford the right guy is a worry. We struck gold with John. I tend to think that we're talking hypothetically here anyway. I still think that John McGlynn will be the manager that sees us through the season, and I think that Scotland will end up, looking around. I hope that Scotland do a proper recruitment process, that they don't just look around the bleeding obvious candidates and pick one from them. I hope that they go and scan the marketplace worldwide, absolutely worldwide. I don't have a problem with a Scotland manager not being a Scot, despite the experiences of Bertie Vogts, obviously 20 odd years ago. But and the other thing about the SFA is that they should have the money to do it as well. Having been to 3 finals in the last 4, their coffers should be reasonably flush. So we no longer have the excuse of not having the cash to go and recruit a decent manager. We wouldn't have had it to recruit a Postecoglou or a Davy Moyes and go and pay them 3 or 4 million. But at the same time, we should be able to afford better than offering somebody 200 or 300 grand to do it on a part-time basis. So I'm hopeful that we go and get the right guy. I'm also hopeful that the right guy for Falkirk by the time we close play in May is still John.
Time will tell. Right, before we go, let's get some quick fire predictions from you both. I'll come to you first, Gordon. 1 word answer if you can, keep it brief. Where are Falkirk going to finish next season?
7th. Craig?
8th.
Who will be your player of the year, Gordon?
We might not have signed him yet, but in the absence of any other information, I'm going to go Liam Henderson.
Craig?
Brad Spencer.
New kit, Gordon, do you love it or do you hate it?
On the fence.
Craig?
Love it.
I'm just missing the carrot. That's my take.
We've got no legal firms yet.
How sugary, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is bolted on, Gordon, is John McGlynn's manager's peg?
If 1 is bolted on for the whole duration of the season, then I'm going 0. I mean, there's no notion that he could lose his job unless he chooses to go. No, he's cast iron.
Craig?
Yeah, exactly the same.
And finally, Gordon, how do you feel about the new season in 1 word?
I'm going to say optimistic again, because I said that last year and meant it, and I'm feeling kind of the same way.
Craig?
Yeah, optimistic was going to be mine, so I'll change. I'll go reserved until I see who we sign.
Nice one. Right, well, that's all we have time for. Many thanks to Gordon Waddell and Craig Cruickshanks, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're doing preview episodes for each Premiership team, so check them out on our feed if you get the chance. And to keep up to speed with everything you need to know about the national game and to be alerted when new episodes are out, subscribe to the Scottish Football Podcast on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone settings. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Hi, this is Ellis James. It's the middle of the night. You've just been following a World Cup match, and now you can't sleep because your body clock is all over the place. Well, we've got a playlist for that. Hear people like me and Kelly Cates calmly reading scorelines from historic World Cups over soothing music.
Austria 1, Sweden 0.
Just search Sleep Goals in BBC Sounds.